Hi everybody, my name is Jason Bennis. I'm the Marine Program Manager for the National Parks Conservation Association, or as we are more commonly referred to as NPCA. We work to protect all of our national parks across the country, but specifically here in this office we focus on those in South Florida, which are Everglades National Park, Biscayne National Park, the Dry Tortugas, Big Cypress, and that keeps us busy. Today we're talking about the partnership NPCA has with Nature Valley, Preserve the Parks, preservetheparks.com, and an innovative project at Biscayne National Park called a coral reef nursery. After a boat grounding, you have various injuries to the coral. Sometimes they're minor and the coral heals itself just fine and you basically just leave it alone and researchers will monitor it and see how well it's doing. Other times it can be a much more aggressive injury. Volunteers at the park, supervised by folks who work at the park, will go out and they'll go to these grounding sites and they will rescue the smaller pieces of coral and they'll bring them back to a coral hospital, and they almost perform a sort of triage where they can figure out which corals have a chance to survive, what needs to be done. Sometimes the corals can actually be the area that's been injured kind of cut away and the healthy coral tissue is left. So they're in a period where they're in this triage where they're being taken care of in a hospital-like setting, just basically on life support. Once they make it out of that, the next stage is to be introduced into the coral reef nursery, which exists in the park's waters. And so the way this works is the small coral is actually affixed to a popsicle stick, commonly referred to now as a coral sickle, and the coral is then, there's an epoxy that mounts the coral in a little, usually they're about yay big, to the popsicle stick, and they are taken to a location in the park that's been picked because it's ideal for this coral to basically grow and heal itself and be protected. So in this scenario, corals grow very slowly, especially a lot of the corals that are damaged in the park and taken to the nursery. They can take 10 or more years to recover to an adequate size that they could then be taken back to the reef. So it's basically triage in the hospital, then they're admitted for a lengthy stay where they put on weight and they are returned and nursed to health, which is why it's called a nursery. And then eventually the plan is they can be returned back to the reef where they came from or any other damaged reef within the park. And again, through a process that's usually using an epoxy or some sort of tie-down system, they're put back on the reef, and from that point on, they become part of the reef again and help contribute to the healthy natural ecosystem that they once were before they went through all that trauma. So that, in a nutshell, is the Coral Reef Nursery Program at Biscayne National Park, and we're thrilled, NPCA is thrilled to be in partner with Nature Valley on this project. You can follow us on preservetheparks.com.